The Galactic Academy's survival instinct examination was legendary, across 400 star systems. It was designed by the Vraxian Collective, a species whose entire evolutionary history revolved around detecting threats in microseconds. Their homeworld was a nightmare of predators, toxic flora, and gravitational anomalies that could crush an unprepared being in moments. No species had ever achieved a perfect score. The Vraxians themselves averaged 82%. The crystalline Shardborn with their distributed consciousness managed 79%. Even the telepathic Mindweavers who could sense danger through quantum entanglement rarely broke 75%. Katniss Chen stood in the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the examination chamber below. As the Academy's youngest xenobiology instructor, she'd seen hundreds of cadets attempt this test. None had prepared her for what she was about to witness. "Subject entering chamber now," announced Proctor Vexthrall, his chitinous mandibles clicking with barely concealed excitement. The Vraxian had administered this test for 30 cycles and took immense pride in its difficulty. Neo Martinez shuffled into the chamber, yawning. The human male looked disheveled, his uniform wrinkled, hair pointing in 6 different directions. He'd apparently just woken up. "Is he aware the test has begun?" Katniss asked, leaning forward. "All subjects are briefed identically," Vexthrall replied. The human acknowledged the instructions. The chamber itself was a masterpiece of psychological and physical engineering. It appeared to be a simple room, but every surface, every shadow, every ambient sound was carefully calibrated to trigger survival responses. Hidden panels would open to reveal simulated threats. Temperature fluctuations would stress the subject's homeostasis. Subsonic frequencies would activate primal fear centers in the brain. Neo looked around once, shrugged, and sat down against the far wall. "Curious," muttered Vexthrall. "Beginning Protocol 1. The lights dimmed. A low growl emanated from the walls, a sound scientifically designed to trigger flight responses in 97% of known species. Neo's heart rate displayed on Katniss's monitor barely changed. He closed his eyes. "Is he meditating?" asked Cadet Zirkoth, a 4-armed Quellan observer. "I don't think so," Katniss said slowly. "I think he's sleeping." Vexthrall's mandibles clacked in disbelief. "Impossible." Protocol 2. The floor beneath Neo shifted subtly, creating an instability that should have forced him to move. His head lolled to one side. A soft snore echoed through the observation deck speakers. "This is unprecedented," Vexthrall hissed. Protocol 5. Skip the intermediate levels. What happened next would be discussed in xenopsychology classes for generations. The chamber erupted into controlled chaos. Holographic predators materialized, their roars shaking the walls. The temperature plummeted to near freezing, then spiked to desert levels. Strobe lights flashed at frequencies known to induce panic. The floor tilted at a 45-degree angle. Neo slid down the inclined floor, rolled over, and continued sleeping, now using his arm as a pillow. "His vitals," Katniss whispered, studying her screen in amazement. "His cortisol levels are dropping. His breathing is deeper. Vexthrall, he's entering REM sleep." The Vraxian proctor was speechless, all 4 of his eyes locked on the display. In 43 cycles of administering this test, he had never seen anything like it. Protocol 9, he finally managed. Maximum intensity. The Academy's ethics board would later question this decision, but Vexthrall was beyond reason. He needed to understand. The chamber became hell incarnate. Every threat protocol fired simultaneously. Simulated explosions, biological hazards, gravitational anomalies all at once. The sensory overload would have incapacitated most species instantly. Neo's eyes snapped open. For exactly 3 seconds, every species in the observation deck held their breath. Then Neo yawned again, stretched, and checked his wrist communicator. His eyes widened. "Oh crap, I'm late for Professor Takana's xenobotany midterm," he mumbled, standing up and walking toward the exit door, which, by protocol, should have been sealed, except the door opened. The test chamber's AI, overwhelmed by Neo's complete lack of threat response, had categorized him as non-sapient furniture and automatically ended the examination. Vexthrall pulled up the results, his mandibles hanging open in shock. 99.7%. What? Katniss nearly dropped her datapad. "The system measures survival instinct efficiency," Vexthrall explained in a daze. "It calculates energy expenditure versus actual threats. The human identified that no real danger existed and allocated zero resources to threat response, conserving all energy for sleeping, Katniss finished, a smile spreading across her face. But the 0.7% deduction? Asked Zirkoth. Bexthrall gestured at the display. He briefly woke up. The system flagged it as an inefficient use of consciousness given the absence of genuine threats. Word spread quickly. By evening, the story had reached the Academy's Administrative Council. By the next morning, it had propagated across the quantum networks to 17 different systems. Humanity's reputation, already formidable after the Frontier Wars, took on a new dimension. Other species began to understand something fundamental about humans. They had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain not through superior strength, speed, or senses, but through something far more terrifying: the ability to assess risk with ruthless accuracy and conserve energy with machine-like efficiency. Humans didn't waste adrenaline on simulations. They didn't panic at shadows. They saved their fire for when it truly mattered, and when it mattered, they brought overwhelming force with the calm efficiency of a species that had stared down extinction multiple times and simply refused to die. Katniss found Neo later that day in the cafeteria, eating something that resembled noodles but was technically sentient algae. "You know you're famous now, right?" she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Neo looked up, confused. "For what?" "The survival test. You slept through it and got the highest score in Academy history." He blinked, processing this. "Wait, that was today? I thought that was next week. I was just taking a nap in what I thought was an empty classroom." Katniss stared at him, then burst out laughing. The other humans in the cafeteria looked over, grinning. They understood. The galaxy's most advanced survival instinct test had been beaten by the most human response possible, mistaking it for a convenient place to catch up on sleep. Somewhere in the observation deck, Bexthrall was redesigning the entire examination protocol. It would take him 3 cycles to realize the fundamental truth: you cannot test what refuses to be threatened by tests. That, the galaxy was learning, was the essence of humanity. Not fearlessness, but the frightening calculation that fear itself was a resource to be spent wisely. And in a universe full of real threats, simulations simply didn't make the cut. Neo finished his noodles and yawned again. He still had that xenobotany midterm to worry about. Now that was actually stressful.